Sorry about that, folks. Thanks for joining us once again, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. I apologize for the weird opening there. Had to grab my PC charger because my laptop was woefully dangerously low on the battery there. So hopefully that should take care of itself. But sorry for the weird opening, Ken. But how are you doing? I know we missed the show last Sunday, but it's good to be back with you guys again.
Yeah, well, last week I had to meet with my sister. Of course, we are as I mentioned, we are going to Asia next month, so we had to get together, and also I had to see my uncle, who is not doing that great. But we went to see him, and my sister and I discussed our trip. So we look forward to that, and there'll be time. I don't know if I'll have time to be on with you. It would be on in probably Monday morning when I would be doing the show with you on the Sunday. But we'll try. I will let you know.
Yeah. We'll try. But most important thing is, I want you to have fun. Obviously on this trip. That's in 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah, that'll be the weekend after July 4th. So we'll we can do our show on the July 5th. I will be working, but I will be back. I should be back in time to do the show, and then I'll be gone for a couple of weeks. But if I can do the show live from Japan, I will do that. Or Taiwan. Well, I won't be able to do the first show because I'll be traveling. But the second show, maybe when I'm in either in Taipei or Tokyo, I'll let you know about that, Stephen. I'll email you or somehow text you. Maybe we'll do it through WhatsApp or something like that, so I can keep my internet rates down. But anyway, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry about that. What happened here? All right. Let's get to the our show conversations. First off, since we were a little bit late, let's discuss about the finals and the Stanley Cup. Let's obviously start with the NBA Finals. OKC beat Indiana a week ago tonight. I'm sorry, that was a Monday. Was it Monday? It was this past Monday. I apologize. It was this past Monday that they won over Indianapolis, 103-91. Contrary to what people were saying, because obviously it was a two small market cities, and the ratings have been aforementioned that it hasn't really been all that great, but Game 7 was quite entertaining, and it got a very good ratings on the Game 7 in particular, of course. I really felt bad for Indiana. It's a classic tale of what could have been or what if.
Right.
If Tyrese Halliburton obviously suffered a grueling ACL injury.
Terrible.
And then from there, Indiana did all they could to hang into the game, believe me. And TJ McConnell was a one-man wrecking crew, especially in the third quarter when the game was already in the double-digit territory, lead for OKC. But TJ McConnell tried to do his best to keep the Pacers in the game. He was actually scoring like 8 points in a row by himself.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, though, OKC hung on, and their talent and depth really, really stood out in this series. They have so many draft picks in the next 5 to 6 years. It's not even funny the way that Sam Presti has accumulated those draft picks. When OKC were just a 24-win team back in 2019 or 20. That was the year that they traded away Paul George, who, by the way, Paul George was originally drafted by the Pacers, went to OKC, and then OKC traded him to the Clippers. So it was like the Paul George trade, Paul George finals to some degree there. And it was actually, quite funny that, OKC was able to come out on top of this one. And, of course, that trade for Paul George to the Clippers netted them, Shea Gilgeous Alexandra. So OKC fans have a lot to be thankful for. I don't think OKC is a dynasty in the making because, listen, it's only one title, of course. And because of their young talent and the amount of draft picks that they have in their arsenal, whether to use their own pick, whether they use that to add veterans to, help them win more titles or keep them, whoever the picks belong to, maybe they might be lucky enough to be picking top 5 in the a lottery in a couple of years whenever they have those picks. It's going to be very, very interesting how they keep their team together. We've seen OKC. I know it sounds corny for some people whenever they do the post-game conferences where players gather around, put a coat on the OKC sideline reporters. I know that's what some people say. It is very, very corny to some degree. They're a young team. They're really, really fun team. Obviously, winning cures a lot of things, but I'll be very curious to see where OKC goes once, they start winning more, and then you're going to have to start paying some of these guys, when their salary gets up. I think SGA is up for an extension next month. It'll be very interesting to see how OKC handles this. I thought Chet Holmgren, who was a number 1 overall pick a couple of years ago before he suffered an ACL, that, he's still getting back into it, but he is woefully thin. So he definitely needs to put on some weight to, deal with the, to be able to be a low post threat moving forward, I think. Jalen Williams, I thought he had a phenomenal game. He had like 30, 40 points in some of the other games that he had. He was literally, the best scorer, probably scored more than SGA out there. So that's a nice 1-2 combo that OKC can build upon. Isaiah Hartenstein, who knows how long he's going to be a starter. Maybe that, maybe in a couple of years, this team slightly look a lot different. But nonetheless, I think OKC will remain very much a viable threat in the NBA, not just in the Western Conference, but overall in the entire NBA landscape, because the Eastern Conference is in such a flux right now. Can you give me your thoughts on the OKC game and the thoughts on the finals and its coverage?
Well, it was a better series than people were saying. Okay, when you get to 7 games, it's pretty exciting. Of course, Game 6, Indiana blew out. Blew out OKC, and everyone's thinking, okay, if we can get, and of course they got to rest. It looked like Indiana was going to have some momentum going into the game, but that injury, as you mentioned, Stephen, just devastating. Indiana did have some momentum. They were leading at the half in Game 7, but that was the worst thing that could have happened for them, because that allowed OKC to get some rest. They got some momentum back, and then they just basically blew out Indiana from there. So I felt bad for Indiana. I was hoping for an Indiana win, but OKC is just too strong. There's a reason why they were the top team in the regular season, Stephen. Every time it seemed like they had some type of adversity, whether it was in the playoffs, like we saw it against Denver, we saw it also against Indiana. They found a way to win. And they could win they could win no matter where they were on the road. They could win at home. They could win. They had, and they were a multifaceted team. I mean, they just don't have SGA. They have a lot of other people, as you mentioned. So I think that very impressed by the way that OKC. As we mentioned, we don't know if this is a dynasty yet. It's still a long ways away. They got to win 2 in a row for me to consider them a dynasty. It's been a while since we've had I think it was Golden State was the last one that won 2 in a row. So it's been a while. So it's difficult to do that. It's not easy. In this era of parity, which Adam Silver loves to see, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another winner, if we get another NBA champion for next season. So overall, I felt ESPN's coverage wasn't very good. Anytime you have Stephen A. Smith yelling in the pregame coverage, post-game coverage, halftime coverage, it's not good for the fan. And we're going to get 11 more years of this, Stephen. And we have Stephen A. Smith, but luckily, inside the NBA will be part of it. TNT will produce it. Whether ESPN will try to force feed Stephen A. into this coverage, I don't know. But at least for the finals, it'll be given to inside the NBA. And whether Stephen A. Smith is part of it, we don't know yet, but we'll find out. But overall, his yelling, whether it was during the NBA finals or the NBA draft, was just over the top. And just enough. I mean, I'm really surprised that the NBA didn't. I know they had a handshake agreement last year for the ESPN to continue, but if NBC could have given a bid, or Amazon could have given a bid to somehow take the NBA Finals away from ESPN, I would have welcomed it. But it didn't happen. It's just the fact that it's the bloviating by Stephen A. Smith it's just gotten too much. And as we wrote on Awful Announcing, I think America needs a vacation from Stephen A. Smith. We don't need him yelling. And I hate to say this, Stephen, but it looks like in his new contract that he signed with ESPN, he managed to get himself onto Monday Night Football coverage. So he's not going to be on during the game, but expect to see him on the pregame show. So that's another reason for you to watch NFL Network or something else before the Monday Night Football comes on at 8 o'clock Eastern time every week during NFL season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we're all so tired of Stephen A. Just he even brought his own daughter into one of the what was it? Was it Game 6 or Game 7?
I don't
one
even.
Of those. I don't even remember. But his daughter was even in it. Right?
Hold on. Looks like Costa Rica has just scored a penalty kick against the United States in the quarterfinals of the Gold Cup. So that's not good for the United States to start off. We'll talk about
Ben Arpston committed a terrible penalty on the right wing back. People, myself, we like to call him Barfston by putting the B in front of the Arpston. My God, because his play is barf-inducing. Terrible penalty. Canada already lost to Guatemala in an upset, and U.S. might be the one that they're going to be looking at it right now if they don't get their
that's a total
act together right now, because
that'll be a total nightmare for Fox, which has put a lot of promotion into the Gold Cup. If the United States loses in the quarterfinal, and also we have Canada losing and only having Mexico, that's going to spell disaster for Fox and FS1's ratings. But we'll talk about what happened to Canada a little bit later on. But I got to tell you, Stephen, if the United States goes out in the quarterfinal, hours after Canada goes out, that's just going to spell disaster, not only for this program, for the United States men's national team program, but also Canada, but also it doesn't give you much confidence for next year's World Cup. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to the NBA finals and the NHL Stanley Cup final.
Right, and we'll talk about the soccer a little bit later in our broadcast as well. So, the OKC, as far as I'm concerned, they had so many games that they were leading, but they ended up squandering some of the leads. Probably the most noticeable one was, I think, a game 1 against the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. And then the game 1 against the Indiana in the NBA finals. They had the lead, they blew it. So they have a tendency to, I don't want to say that maybe they look down on an opponent or, play down to their strength. They need to learn to finish much better. I've seen a lot of times in the finals where, Indiana dominated the second rebound or, offensive rebounds. And, they really need to, tighten up their defense. In that sense, I think if they, learned anything from that experience and, play much better next year with those things, taken care of, I think OKC would be, incredibly tough to beat in the ever tough Western Conference. With the teams that are loaded anyway to begin with, and OKC will be even better than the 68 win team that they want. Maybe they don't necessarily win 68 wins in next year, but they will still probably be much better because of their experience that they garnered from their appearance in the finals. And then that whatever that they learned from their own mistakes, where they couldn't protect the lead, and if they do a better job of playing tighter defense and make the shots that when they need to, this team will still be better regardless of the record moving forward. So let's move on to the NHL Stanley Cup. Florida again won 4-2, and Connor McDavid once again failed against the Florida Panthers. Florida back-to-back champions now. It's actually unbelievable. In the last 10 years or so, Tampa has been very, very good as well. They've won their share of Stanley Cups in the past. Now it's Florida Panthers that has been the center of the hockey universe right now. They don't have a marquee name like Connor McDavid by any stretch, but they got a lot of great players that they acquired in the trading deadline, particularly Brian Marchand, who has been has brought the grit and the veteran leadership from that he had when he was with Boston, of course, and he's won a Stanley Cup with Boston there himself. Florida became a even more difficult animal to beat. Getting past Toronto in the the conference conference semifinals, and then they breezed past Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. Against the Edmonton Oilers, they had a bit of a challenge themselves, but a lot of the games went to overtime. I think 3 of the 6 games went into overtime. It was a really, really an incredible game. Game 1, I think Edmonton won. Game 2, again, another overtime game where Florida won. It was just had Edmonton won game 2, I think it would have been a completely different story. But again, again, the Canada is experiencing their 32-year drought now of not winning the Stanley Cup. The last one, of course, is the 92-93 season when Montreal won it. And then from there, of course, they've been to finals here and there, but they've never come close to sniffing it, unfortunately.
Well, they've got the 7-game series before, like Vancouver, last year's Edmonton series against Florida. This year was only 6 games. And as you mentioned, Connor McDavid can only do so much. Edmonton has to. They're going to try and sign him, but it's up to Connor McDavid if he wants to stay there. He's got his contract is coming up next season, but Edmonton doesn't want him to go free. Obviously, they don't want him to go to free agency because anything can happen. I don't think he's going to give a hometown discount, so Edmonton's really got to release the coffers to sign him for this upseason. Brad Marchand, as you mentioned, is a free agent. Toronto is making a big pitch for him. Bruins fans would not like to see that. He did mention that he did grow up being a big Maple Leafs fan. Maple Leafs fans have been snake bit over their franchise. They did sign John Tavares, one of their core 4. So looks like they will sign him and keep him for 4 years, the next 4 seasons. If they're able to get Brad Marchand, that would definitely Bruins fans would definitely hate to see that. Me as a Bruins fan also, because I like seeing Toronto suffer as much as they have, and I want to continue to see them suffer. Mitch Marner, who is another free agent, unrestricted free agent, looks like they will try to sign him and then trade him to get some value for him. But overall, Florida, as you mentioned, Stephen, they're just this is a franchise that even just as many as 5 years ago was on the verge. There was nobody going to the games. There was a big trouble. They were talking about moving the franchise, but their leadership has stabilized. they're in a place now where attendance is up. Sports Business Journal actually gave them the franchise of the year in their Sports Business Awards from last year. So the Florida's done a fantastic job, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the Stanley Cup final next season, Stephen, because they're that good. They're that good. They will have to manage the cap. There's some people that they have to sign. Seth Jones was one of them. One of the people that they've got in the trade deadline. You mentioned Brad Marchand. They would love nothing more to keep him. They would also have other free agents as well on their team. So I believe Sam Bennett is another one. So they have decisions to make, and they want to keep. And if they want to keep these guys, it's going to cost some money. Obviously, there is a salary cap in the NHL as well, but it looks like there's going to be some labor peace right now. The NHL and the NHL Players Association are about to sign a new agreement. We've always seen in the past under Gary Bettman lockouts that have lasted full seasons or maybe half the season. It doesn't look like this is the case right now, as Marty Walsh, the former mayor of Boston, is the head of the NHLPA right now. So it looks like we'll have some labor peace. But overall, got to say, the NHL, the ratings weren't that great in the United States. The ratings were up in Canada. So, and plus under the contract that they have with ESPN and TNT here in the United States, they know that they're going to have some good money coming in, and also they signed a big deal with Sportsnet in Canada to remain on that network. So the NHL is doing quite well financially, and that's going to trickle down to the players apparently. So we'll see where they go and see what the summer brings. And if Florida can keep their core together, I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the final next season.
Yeah, I agree. I think Florida will likely be in the still upper echelon in the Eastern Conference teams right now. As long as they're in the top 3, top 4, I think they will be tough to beat. I mean, they got there even without, being the best team in the Eastern Conference by a long shot mile. So, with their winning pedigree, and then the lack of state income taxes, I think the players might be are very keen on coming to Florida and play for the Panthers. If the Panthers are once again flirting, with getting to the playoffs and getting reinforcements at the trade deadline. So very interesting to see what kind of offseason both finalists have. And I think Edmonton will probably have a harder one because Connor McDavid might not sign for a long term. Maybe he's like, I still want to be at an age where maybe 34 or 33 or 34, he still have something left in the tank and go somewhere else where he can win a Stanley Cup, which obviously might be probably a terrible nightmare for many Edmonton fans. But that's probably one of the realities that, the Edmonton Oilers are likely to be faced with. There's no question Connor McDavid is their biggest star since Wayne Gretzky. And we all know what happened when Wayne Gretzky and his, cast of, crew that won Stanley Cups, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, those superstars start to leave the team. They became very, very, weak. Not too long ago, the Edmonton Oilers were pretty bad teams. They were always drafting number 1 or top 3 NHL. They got Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Hall, and now McDavid. Those are top big players that they've thankfully managed to draft and build them into a Stanley Cup finalist. But you got to be able to learn to finish. Exactly. That's not and very interesting offseason awaits for Oilers and Connor McDavid and what he does, whether he signs a long-term extension or just a short-term extension and say, I want to keep my options open. All right, let's move on to the NBA and the NHL draft coverage that was happening this week, both on ESPN and the ABC and the family of networks, of course. I got to tell you, there were some quirks, of course. A lot of people were up in arms and complaining about both coverages. And the NBA, I think a lot of people were up in arms, first of all, because whenever the trade happens, the players who got selected was actually on the end of being traded, their hat isn't changed.
Yeah, the wrong hat.
Right. And then they would announce the trade 5-10 minutes later when we already know on social media that the trade actually did take place. With the NHL, of course, their draft house concept, where the player gets drafted and go into this, open the door, talk to the the GM, team president, and scouting director, the coaches or whatnot. That really fell flat and was not well received, because I always felt that the NHL had a weird draft, where they would bring the entire entourage of front office people, and then they would spend so much time thanking people, the city, or whoever they want to do, before they would announce their picks, and which kind of made it even more, boring, because, unlike the NBA and the NFL, not many American fans, unless you're a hardcore, really know who these prospects are to begin with. So, Ken, what were your thoughts on the NBA and the NHL coverage, and what did you like, what you did not like in both sports in this one?
Well, the NBA draft, Disney tried to put, like they did with the NFL draft, the first round was put on ABC. They split coverage. So Kevin Nagandi hosted ABC's coverage with Stephen A. Smith, and
Bob Myers.
Bob Myers. I felt bad for Bob Myers, because every time he seemed like he wanted to make a point, Stephen A. would shout him down, and you could see Bob Myers hang his head. Meanwhile, Malika Andrews was hosting ESPN the first round, and then the second round was just on ESPN only. Again, Stephen A. Smith yelling. There's no need for Stephen A. Smith to yell. There's no need to him to. You can see just Bob Myers. I wouldn't be surprised if Bob Myers just decided just to quit ESPN after this year, or just decided to go back into some type of consulting for a team. He doesn't deserve that. He's a guy who has great insights. ESPN,
right. He's won it all, of course. Yeah,
and of course he was at Golden State. He has he has great insights about what it's like to be in the draft room, or what it's like to draft somebody or hire a great coach, as is the case with Steve Kerr. So use him that way. I don't know why ESPN just lets him sit there and then just listens to Stephen A. Smith yell and then try to counter. He's got great insights. You let him use him. As far as the NHL draft, they decided to what they call decentralize, and decided to have all the war rooms. They like to have the war room. They like that war room look that the NFL has. Yeah. But it added, the first round went 4.5 hours, Stephen, on Friday night. That's way too long. The ESPN had scheduled this to go 3.5 hours from 7 Eastern to 10:30, and then they had a professional fighters league bout afterwards, a tournament. They had to put that to, I think because of all the programming that they had to put that on ESPN Plus and then join it in progress. That draft was it just didn't seem to have any. First of all, you allow Gary Bettman to filibuster for the first 4.5 minutes and put everybody to sleep. Then you had drafts, and then you had trade alerts. It just wasn't. It wasn't a very good presentation. I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to to centralize it, to do it all in one place again. But to try and decentralize and have, for instance, they had Adam Sandler announce the Boston Bruins pick. I am not a Adam Sandler fan. He's never been funny to me. I feel he robs the American people of their money every time he makes a movie. That wasn't very funny. They did have Nikki Glaser announce the St. Louis Blues pick, and she was quite funny. But overall, it wasn't a very good presentation. It was all over the place. It was helter-skelter. I give the NHL credit to try something new, but this just didn't work. Bring back the decentralized draft. Bring everybody back. And I'm sure that you will be able to cut down on the 4.5-hour abomination that we saw Friday night. It was just absolutely terrible. I would rather see, I would rather see those greetings of all the draft peoples, of all the front office thanking the host city for that. But I know the NHL was trying something new, but it was just ridiculous, and it just didn't work. And I would it would behoove the NHL to go back to their tried and true format of having everything in just one city. And the first round on Friday night, and then rounds 2 through 7 the following day, and just let it go, let it be at that.
Yeah, 4.5 hours is gruesome to sit and listen to the names of the players you're not really familiar with at all, except for maybe like a top 3 players. In a draft that is, especially if it's like maybe once in a generation type, like Connor McDavid a couple of years ago, when he was picked first overall by Chicago. Nobody should be subjected to sitting 4.5 hours of the draft, especially when it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern and then go almost till midnight. So, it's very, very difficult for anybody to sit and watch. Especially when your favorite team, who knows when they're drafting, and you got to wait such a long time.
Oh yeah.
To hear your team call the name. So.
I mean, you're going to get blood clots in your leg if you're going to keep sitting that long. You got to stand up. So, I was ridiculous. I mean, the NHL's got to go back to the drawing board on that.
All right, let's move on to the next subject. The Club World Cup and the Gold Cup is taking place in the U.S., and the problems are abound. Obviously, Ken. Your website have done some articles on the coverage of the Club World Cup as well as the Gold Cup here that's taking place right now. Let's start with the Gold Cup. Excuse me. Let's start with the Club World Cup. It's quite difficult, especially when the games are taking place in the middle of the afternoon, like 12 o'clock. On a, say, for example, Tuesday, okay, and and then you blame the U.S. fans for not showing up. First of all, it's Tuesday or Monday, and 12 o'clock, we still have to go to work, okay, and sometimes the game being played at a stadium that is
an NFL stadium.
And an NFL stadium that's like 60, 70,000. And then you have about 25, 30,000 if you're lucky. And, I mean, who are you blaming? It's unfair to blame the U.S. soccer fans who are clearly outpriced. And then the FIFA continues to do a terrible job with overpricing these games, like $150 on a second or third level stadium, on a 65, 70,000 seat stadium on a regular weekday in the middle of the afternoon. And, I don't even know what, I think this is just another cash grab that, FIFA is desperately trying to launch, because the FIFA and UEFA are kind of at odds, of course. UEFA has their own brand of, Champions League. And then FIFA is desperately trying to launch their new series that kind of combats with the, UEFA Champions League to some degree. But, because of the inordinate amount of empty stadiums all across the country, even the typical MLS stadiums that holds about 25,000 seats, that was noticeably empty in many capacities.
Well,
and it's unfortunate.
I'll tell you why they schedule in the afternoon, because that was for Europe. Because a lot of these teams are from Europe, so they get on the prime time in Europe. They're 5 or 6 or 7 hours ahead of us. So that's the reason why they scheduled at noon and 3 o'clock. A couple of games are at 9 o'clock Eastern time at night. But again, you're playing these games, Stephen, as you mentioned, in NFL stadiums. The reason why FIFA is doing that is because it's a test run for next year. A lot of these stadiums are also going to be hosts and venues for the World Cup. So they're trying to get technology to work in there. They're trying to test the technology and also wire the stadiums properly. But I think you're absolutely right. If you're going to, a lot of these stadiums that were full there were a lot of free tickets that were held up, that were sent out because they knew the kids are from home and from school. So in Charlotte, like 40,000 tickets were given out to schools and to kids to get them to come. So that kind of, it made it look a little, the stadiums for some of those matches in Charlotte looked like they were full, but a lot of the free tickets were given out because to kids and to school boys clubs and girls clubs to get more people in the stadium. Credit for the FIFA for doing that, but at the same time, you got to realize what your audience is. I also think at the same time, using Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, rather than Inter Miami Stadium in Fort Lauderdale would have been. I think that Inter Miami Stadium could have been used, but again,
it would have been much more intimate too.
Yeah, exactly. But again, FIFA's trying to. I don't think Miami's a host, but they're just
no, it is a host. Miami's a host. That Hard Rock, yeah.
Okay, so they're trying to get more people to. They're trying to test the technology in the stadium, the VAR. They're trying to make sure they're also going to use drone technology, but still, at the same time, Stephen, it's not good. It's not a good look for the. And not only that, you're holding the tournament at the same time as the CONCACAF Gold Cup. There's a lot of confusion out there amongst casual fans, and you're trying to hook fans. So you're saying the United States is playing, but then there's Inter Miami of MLS. You have LAFC of MLS. There's no real way to build momentum. In addition, DAZN has all the rights to it, so only a few selected games are on TNT and on TBS, and also Univision and TUDN, which is Univision's All Sports Spanish network. So again, there's a lot of confusion out there. So you're confusing casual fans who want to watch the games and let's say, okay, Messi's playing, but which tournament is he in? Is he in the Gold Cup? Obviously not, because that's CONCACAF. But what's going on here? So it's not very good to have these tournaments on at the same time, and you're killing fans who may want to go to one of these games. And I think it's just really bad that FIFA decided to hold this at the same time as the CONCACAF World Cup, because you're basically killing the fans here, because you're cutting off your nose despite your own face, Stephen.
No, I agree. We've talked about greed in sports a lot of times. The governing bodies, the officials. It's just terrible. And the worst part in all of this is that you're playing in the middle of the game, which is sweltering heat, where we've seen water breaks, which is necessary. But yesterday's Club World Cup between Chelsea and Benfica of Portugal, the game was delayed because of the weather, right? And then 2 hours, right? And Enzo Maresca, the coach of Chelsea, was very much adamant about the weather situation. What we're seeing this year so far, it could be even much more worse because of the weather, and because of the number of players getting heat exhaustion, of course, and it could be really a problematic, whether the players could suffer a heat exhaustion taken out or
severe weather.
Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, and the severe weather, that's the thing. That was the delay yesterday with the Benfica-Chelsea match. Chelsea was controlling the game, but that 2-hour delay allowed Benfica to rest up and score a tying goal late. I think it was like 85 minutes at the 86th or 87th minute when they called the game for severe weather. The two teams had to go into the locker room, but then Benfica scored a tying goal. They had to go to extra time. We can discuss this too. Another issue is the fact that the FIFA Club World Cup has extra time and CONCACAF Gold Cup does not. That's another ridiculous thing. So, but during the extra time period, Chelsea scored 3 goals, and was able to win 4-1. But of course, there was also tweets on social media, Stephen, about European fans who were waiting for this game to come back on. And it was getting late night in Europe, so a lot of people were staying up to watch to find out when the results of this game. And I think the Chelsea game was on at 9:00 last night, so it really gave. I think it was also in Charlotte too, Stephen. So it really delayed and forced fans to stay up in Europe. And you got to feel for them. I mean, it wasn't a work day, at least on Sunday, but still, you're asking a lot of people to stay up, and it was really difficult, and especially in that situation where severe weather was definitely a factor, and it could be a factor definitely for next season with the climate change and global warming, Steve. A lot of things, Stephen. We're going to see a lot of these situations, and a lot of these, like while SoFi Stadium doesn't have a roof, but like Minneapolis does have a roof, but they're not going to be. Not all of these stadiums are going to be playing for FIFA have a dome, so that's going to be an issue, and we could see weather delays next year.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know they say that the Club World Cup was supposed to be a test run, but honestly, I would prefer the old one where when club, what was the Federations Cup that took place, where the champions of, Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, and then others that used to, play a year before the World Cup.
Yep. Happened in Russia. Also
happened in Russia, happened in Brazil. That actually originated back in, I think, 97, the year before the World Cup in France. So I don't know why they got rid of that. I don't know, maybe having more countries or having more club teams would have been much more profitable. And the U.S. just scored. Sorry, the U.S.
And they missed. This is after they missed a PK too, Stephen. So yeah, that's a big.
Yes, that was a terrible penalty by Malik Tillman, who tried to, do a Bonola. Looked like he just got cute and hit to the left side and hit the post and went backwards. My God, that was a terrible, terrible. Diego Luna with the big shot off his left foot and may have hit probably a Costa Rica defender. Keylor Navas jumped towards the shot, but the ball deflected off of a Costa Rican defender, and Navas was completely oblivious to the empty side. And the U.S. thankfully tied 1-1. Hopefully the score will remain the same. I'm not sure if this is an own goal or this is a goal to be given to Diego Luna there. But U.S. thankfully tied, but they should not have been in this position in the first place because obviously Ben Armstead committed a stupid bonehead penalty there.
Oh yeah, it was a deflection. Yeah, there's a deflection. There might be my YouTube TV was way behind by about a minute after you mentioned that goal. But United States, great goal by Luna. United States have tied it with Costa Rica. They really need to. It would be absolutely embarrassing if Canada and United States went out on the same day in the same venue. They're both playing in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium. Why, I don't know, but the United States is
right. I don't know why they're playing in Minnesota because they're not hosting the World Cup, unfortunately. Here, as beautiful and as great of a stadium it is, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and the fact is that both quarterfinals.
Well, maybe it's the roof. It's because of the roof to combat.
Yeah, it could be. But the fact is that the United States, in fact, the CONCACAF chose to have a quarterfinal doubleheader yesterday and today, so in the same venue. I don't know why, but that's CONCACAF, Stephen. Again, we just have to say it's CONCACAF. So
it's really ridiculous because the U.S. played last Sunday in an uninspiring game against Haiti, and then now we had to wait an entire week for the quarterfinals. And then the semifinals is on Wednesday, and the schedule is now cramped. So it's kind of, puts more pressure on the players' well-beings. And, when was the last time, these governing bodies ever even cared or thought of the players' well-being? The Club World Cup, the Gold Cup, having it all on the same continent, same time, killing each other's products, all in the name of the money, of course. But it's unfortunate, and we're not going to be afraid to calling out these governing or sanctioning officials, whether it's FIFA, whether it's the IOC or whatnot. It's all about greed, and there's always a moron that's willing to be a willing participant to rig the system to benefit certain segments of people. And in this case, with FIFA, of course, Gianni Infantino, who is the chairman, who somehow looks to be all talk and no action type of guy. I'm sick of this guy because he seems to be always trying to, ass kissing to Trump with the World Cup coming up. And then his comments recently about how the U.S., soccer will be a very popular sport, maybe top 3 or whatnot in the next couple of years because he is here now. I don't even know what that means. I mean, like, does he have a power to, force changes with the MLS to add promotion relegation or increase the salary cap all of a sudden because of the recent poor showing at the Club World Cup where only Inter Miami barely squeaked by to get to the next round where they were easily beaten by PSG 4-0. Right. Yeah. All 4 goals were scored by PSG in the first half, and they didn't even give a damn in the second half because the game was already over. Probably they didn't want to, rack up scores like U.S. teams tend to do here when the game is completely far and out.
Right.
Maybe out to respect to, former club legend Lionel Messi, even though his time in PSG weren't exactly as eventful or memorable like he was with Barcelona, unfortunately. So, but anyway, unless Infantino is going to force these changes to make MLS even, a much better product, I just hope that Infantino just, shuts his mouth because every time he speaks, he sounds, very unintelligent, and it sounds like he is trolling the American soccer fans and soccer media. So that's all. That's my 2 cents with regards to, the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup. You have any final thoughts on this one, Ken?
Yeah, Stephen, I will say this. Again, United States. I quickly about Canada earlier today. I have to say they looked very good at the beginning, as you mentioned, as we talked off the air. They had a goal. They were doing quite well, and then a very stupid sequence where one of the players got two yellow cards in succession very quickly within 3 minutes. And then that he got sent off right before the half. And then Canada had to hold on for dear life. They're very lucky that didn't get 2 goals in regulation. Guatemala scored a tying goal, and then they went to PKs. And you just knew that Canada wasn't going to win this because they just looked nervous. They looked scared. And one of their kicks was saved. Bacon was saved by when the Guatemala's captain airmailed one of their penalty kicks, and then so they went to extra kicks. But then one of their kids who was like really really young had his kick saved, and then that by that time Guatemala just sealed the deal and upset Canada. This is a team that was expected to perhaps that could have won the trophy, but again, Jesse Marsch had some issues during the group stage. He was suspended for 1 game. Canada also barely got out of the group. They did win the group, but they didn't play very well their second game, and they almost got up. They did lose. So I just think that Canada came in. They put too much pressure on themselves, and Jesse Marsch also didn't act very well throughout this entire Gold Cup tournament. And they paid the price, and they lost and they're out. So there's going to be a lot of discussion over with the Canadian Soccer Federation, Stephen, but and deservedly so, because Jesse Marsh's behavior was just absolutely horrendous throughout this entire tournament. And they're out, and the United States right now has got to survive this game against Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a tough out. They're not. Don't think that they can be beaten easily, because they have given the United States some hard times in the past before, not only in CONCACAF and other international competitions as well. So I would not be surprised to see the United States get knocked out tonight. Although they're playing a little bit better right now after their penalty against Arstein. So as you mentioned, they've got to play a little bit better, and now they go to the half tied at 1.
Yeah, Canada talks a good game. Obviously, that's probably robbed off on Jesse Marsh's swagger and his disdain towards the U.S. Soccer and the Soccer Federation for how he was treated, for the job that he wanted after Greg Berhalter got fired, and deservingly so. So he is basically, using Canada as a way to rile up the U.S. soccer, the media, and the fan base. And then today, obviously, you said that his behavior have been in question, of course. His belligerence toward the refs. He was suspended for the 2 games, I believe, or maybe a game. His last game, of course, he was seen watching it from a pretty far out, on the stadium, seating area to watch the game. I think back in March, of course, this was when Gold Cup semifinals, or what is it, the Nations League?
Nations League, right?
Yeah, it was a Nations League. Of course, he was also given a stern warning towards maybe a female judge, calling her the B word or whatnot. But there is a bit of a history, of course. And if Jesse Marsh's focus is on trying to piss off American media or American soccer fans, and not the big picture, of course, is to help Canada get past the group stage, which they have never done so in the past appearance in the World Cup. Then they're going to probably regret this hire. The book is out on Jesse Marsh. He starts off very fast. Like with his past stops, like RB Salzburg, RB Leipzig, and then Leeds United. They get off to a fast start, and then he gets exposed. He can't adjust. He gets fired. Maybe this might be the similar situation we're seeing now with Jesse Marsh at Canada. So maybe this loss will hopefully humble them. I'm not sure. But, you definitely need to have a host country do very well in these types of situations, because you don't want host countries crashing out, without even having any competitive game in their home countries. So let's see if Canada, learn the valuable lessons from how they were ousted and upset by a very small country of Guatemala. I give credit to Guatemala. They played very inspiring. They did not settle for, a penalty kicks toward the end. They were still going after the goals. They were still going after the goals.
Yeah, they were. This is a team that normally likes to counterattack. But when they saw that Canada was down 1 man, and they saw that they knew that they would have to chase, their coach just said, go, attack. And that's exactly what they did. And I give credit to Guatemala. This is a country. And of course, you saw yesterday, Honduras upset Panama yesterday in the quarterfinals. So, and our good friend Ana Yurka was live streaming during that event. She was very happy. Of course, that's her native country, Stephen. So great to see that. And perhaps we can get Ana Yurka on after the Gold Cup. But it was great to see that. It was wonderful to see Honduras defeat a Panama team that has done quite well in the Gold Cup before. Great to see the Guatemala getting in as well. But I agree with you. Canada, which flamed out in the last World Cup in Qatar, they brought Jesse Marsh in to get out of the group stage. But if you can't get out of the group stage in the they got out of the group stage in the Gold Cup, but you got to win your quarterfinal to get at least to the semifinal to give your federation some hope. And the way that they played today, they should have known what they were. The last game was full of fouls, and they got frustrated. And Jesse March should have said, "Hey, look, we can't play that way against Guatemala because you're going to give them confidence." And that's exactly what happened. They had stupid play, and they were down to 10 men, and they got tired at the end, and they lost in PKs. And it's a deserved end for a team that just did not. I really do think they succumbed to the pressure this year, Stephen. I really do.
Mm-hmm. And then Jesse March was seen making excuses after the game that, if I'm honest, we're missing half of our group. That's not an excuse. I'm sorry. That's an excuse, Jesse March. Please. You joked on the U.S. for the our performance or our commitment. And you talked about how you guys are together and fully committed. So that's, again, he was taking shot at the U.S.'s Gold Cup drama. Involving Christian Pulisic and whatnot. And then your team got knocked out by a country that's 1/8 of your size of Tennessee, right. And you're making silly excuses, which is not a good look on Marsh.
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. One more thing before we close out, since we're talking on awful announcing, is that the one Alexei Lalas, and we've talked about this guy for quite some time. He spoke a week ago, 2 weeks ago, questions the diversity in the U.S. soccer. Maybe our best rules is actually more exclusive, which I find it to be, I found myself, pissed off and just really boiling internally about, and then he also said that basically he wants to have like a Clay Travis role moving forward, which obviously means he wants to be on Fox News so he can degrade the women, LGBT communities and minorities and whatnot, which I find it to be dumbfounded that the guy who plays soccer, which is a sports that is, very, very diverse, and then he wants to make it only exclusive, which means exclusive for people with money, which obviously soccer is a problematic when it comes to the cost of, pay and play, traveling soccer, et cetera, and yet he only wants to make it only for those who can afford it, mostly white people sports, I guess. But Ken, I'm going to give the floor to you to, close out this segment on soccer. Your thoughts on the Lalas's racist troll?
I've never been a fan of his. Even as a player, when he was like a hipster with his beard and everything, long hair and a beard, playing guitar. Yeah. If you remember his Sports Center, this is Sports Center promos. He would be sitting on a desk with a guitar and bare feet. Looking like a hipster, and then starting in the World Cup coverage in 2010 in Africa, he was more, slimmed down, looking more conservative, and these comments, he's made them before, Stephen. It's not a surprise to me. He did say them in guitar. He said that it just didn't get picked up this time around. He did say it again. I'm not surprised, but the fact that he said that he wanted to be a Clay Travis type, again, not surprising because, we know where he stands. Alexei Lalas, I think, is more of a troll. I really think that he just says things as a provocateur to try and get attention. And, really, to be honest with you, he's going to be on the Women's UEFA Euro coverage coming up next month, Stephen. I really don't know what he's doing there because he's not really. I don't think he's really helpful with the women's coverage. He's never has been. Carly Lloyd is going to be on there as well. So she's like Alexei Lalas,
the female version of Alexei. Yeah.
So I don't know what I know. I know Fox is trying to get attention. They've always liked to get Fox Sports. I mean, I don't. they're not like Fox News. I give them credit for that. They're a little bit more inclusive on their coverage, but I have to say that this is to have Alexi Lawless continuing on in your soccer coverage. It just shows to me that they're not serious. They just don't really care. And to have Alexi there, I mean, I like Rob Stone. Rob is a friend of mine. I like what he does as a host, but overall, Alexi is just. I think he's just there just to. He's just there to get to try and get attention to himself, and he's kind of like the Skip Bayless of soccer. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I think Fox has done so much damage to soccer coverage, which unfortunately they have this upcoming one as well as the next one. Fox Sports. Is it John Strong who gets a lot of criticism because I know he's not well received himself as well, right?
Well, John, I don't have a problem with John Strong. He gets excited, and I think he does a good job. I just don't think that I do think that they're trying to use American voices as opposed to ESPN, which uses all English voices on their on our coverage. What's interesting, Stephen, is that
same with NBC with the Premier League as well.
Well, yeah, they use that Premier League, but that's understandable. But the United States wanted to go all with American voices, and I don't blame them for that. And I think I happen to like John Strong. I think he does a good job. He does get a little bit overexcited on every shot. I mean, every shot that goes over the net seems to be that goes 20 feet above the net seems to be extremely close. But that's the way he is. But I've come to expect that from him. But I really do think, though, that Stephen, I think that this is the last World Cup in this cycle for Fox. They don't have the Women's World Cup because it's going to go to Netflix. And then after for the 32. No, I'm sorry, for the 20, for the 30 and the 34 for the Men's World Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if a streaming service gets that and then get some games. I would like to see CBS get it, to be honest with you, because they seem to treat the sport and with the right reverential coverage, and seeing Kate Scott and those guys with the studio on the UEFA Champions League. I would like to see them have a chance to cover the World Cup, but we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, Alexi Lalas is a troll. I really think he is. He's been that way. I've always felt that way. He and Eric Winalda used to be bullies on the set. Then Winalda eventually left to go try to run for U.S. Soccer, and then he hasn't been back since. I'm happy for that. But Alexi Lalas just continues to be on Fox's coverage, and I think it does a disservice to the fans.
Absolutely. Maybe Fox will have, wake up and eventually realizes that people like Lawless are not doing any help with the Fox's perception and its coverage. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, it's time for the final word segment. Ken, I'm going to give you the floor to you first. What is your final word for this week?
Well, as we get ready for NFL coverage coming up, I am very tired of Aaron Rodgers. I really am. Whether he said that he would probably go away when he retires. Please do. I don't think he's going to be honest with you. As long as Pat McAfee is around, he's going to have a platform to speak. But he says that he is. What happens, Stephen, if, let's say, Pittsburgh goes to the playoffs, wins a playoff game, goes deep into the, let's say, goes to the AFC Championship and falls short and doesn't go to the Super Bowl. You know that Pittsburgh is going to try and bring Aaron Rodgers back for another season. He says this is his last season, but I'm just really tired of him and his interviews and his ayahuasca and his going to wherever his hideout or whatever he's going to do. Please do go away. If you're going to make promises, please fulfill them. And if you're going to leave, just go away quietly. I know he got married. Congratulations on that. And I certainly wish him the best of luck. But please, your act is tired. Please go away. If you're going to make a promise, please do. But I have a feeling this won't be the end of Aaron Rodgers, even if, let's say, this is his last season. I have a feeling we're still going to see him around.
Absolutely. I'm tired of them trying to, say that this is most than likely his final seasons. Just shut up and play, man. Just
Yep.
if you're ready to retire, retire and then just go into the sunset and don't even, bother, talking about football or life or whatnot. We could care less. I mean, most of the guys aren't cut out to be an analyst, whether it's a play-by-play or like an in-studio guy to begin with anyway, right? So, maybe Aaron Rodgers needs to, I don't know, just shut up and play the game and then go away as far away as possible where we don't need to hear about him for a long, long time. My final word is the Chicago Bulls. They're continuing to ruin the whatever the equity that they have built up, the brand, the prestige during their 6 title runs in the 90s. They traded away second round picks for cash considerations. It's hard to fathom that no other team cares less about the draft picks than the Chicago Bulls. Cash considerations like, are they really hurting that much for cash, or are they just basically trying to make it look like to improve their bottom line or something? It's a little embarrassing, and go, and the U.S. just scored.
I'm way behind you, Steven, but that's good to see the nice.
I'm watching, and I apologize. I'm watching.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Fox
It's breaking
Sports,
news.
Fox Sports. I'm just watching it on local Fox Sports, Fox 2 here in Detroit.
Yep.
And you won't believe who just scored a goal. You won't believe it.
Was it Arstein?
Arstein, the guy who committed that stupid penalty.
Well, that's good. That's good. He made up for it.
Well, at least you get a redemption here.
I'm just seeing it now. I'm just seeing the United States getting into the area, and there's Arstein with a great goal. That was a great pass, set him up, and he scored from the left-hand side. So Arstein made up for his really ridiculous foul earlier that gave Costa Rica the lead. Now, I don't want to see the United States, which is what we've seen in the past. They take a lead, and then they just take their foot off the gas and let their back line try to save everything. Continue to attack, try to get another goal, and then if you want to relax in your back line, that's fine. But get a 2-goal lead, keep pressing, keep attacking, and make sure you get into the semifinals, because we want to see this United States team do well. And actually, I am seeing some great hunger on this team. It's great that we criticize the guys like Pulisic and Weah and Giorena for not coming in. But this team is hungry, Steven, and I like this spirit of this team. I like what Pochettino was doing, and he's giving them a chance to play. He says, look, you are playing for a chance to play in the World Cup. Not all of you are going to make it, but I want to see who can do it, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from this team.
Well, they're not skillful, I'll say this. Patrick Aguiman, has been just terrible, turnstile. Oh, yeah. He cannot hold the ball. He's not the most skillful guy. Unfortunately, he has, whiffed on some shots. Unfortunately, even in a one-on-one situations, or cannot hold up, the post play and everything. Yeah, but yeah, maybe none of these guys, maybe 1 or 2 guys will likely be on the roster, not a starter, but maybe like a roster spot guy.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully these guys will, give U.S. soccer fans something to believe in moving forward. Now, getting back to my what I was saying about the Chicago Bulls, your website talked about, which I think I may have retweeted to you and the website, about the Chicago Bulls getting involved in the CSN, Chicago Sports Network, which is a network that they started with the White Sox, the Bulls, and the
Blackhawks.
3 losing organizations. They got off to a pretty bad start when the channel was launched, and apparently the Bulls chairman and the Chicago Bulls were somewhat involved in the removal of one of their Chicago Sports Network podcast. It says here Jeff Agrest, the Chicago Sun-Times media reporter, talked to CHSN confirmed they pulled the episode, but both the network and the Bulls told Agris that team had nothing to do with it. But Agris found out that the Bulls did, in fact, inquire with CHGO about the episode. Now, it's a bad look when teams starts to get involved in controlling the narrative as well as the messages. The Chicago Bulls have been largely a mediocre franchise. The standard and the excellence, again, that was set forth during the Jordan era in the 90s when they won 6 world championships, is long gone. Now they have literally moved the goalpost to where getting to the play-in game is an equivalent of winning the finals for these losers. And now they're trying to, force their own media members to stop criticizing or be critical about the contract extension of the executives Arturas Karnisovas and general manager Mark Eversley, which was not well received just before the NBA draft this past week. And you talk about communism and all that kind of nonsense that you hear about politicians making against the the mainstream media these days. This is basically excuse me, straight out of that playbook, in my opinion. And quite frankly, it just makes me angry that the Chicago Bulls continue to focus on these small things rather than trying to improve their own product to make the fans proud of the Chicago Bulls once again. What do you think, Ken?
Well, I'm not too familiar with the story, but Jeff Agrest, who is a guy who I follow, and the media reporter, as you mentioned, for the Chicago Sun-Times, very well connected there. Has been following the Chicago Sports Network ever since it launched. Of course, one other thing, too, about Chicago Sports Network, they were on over-the-air network stations before Comcast put it on one of their higher sports tiers, and now Chicago Sports Network is a cable only. So those fans who are able to watch it over the air have to pay for it now, and something that
they had to get an antenna, and they were struggling to connect the antenna to watch it on air. Like you watch Fox, CBS, NBC, and ABC.
Right.
Now they can't do that. Now you have to, unless you're a Comcast customer, you have to pay for the CHSN and the sports package or whatnot if you live in that area to watch CHSN. So yeah, it's another poor timing. That we have come accustomed to 3 losing organizations, which has kind of lost its way, especially the Bulls and the White Sox, both owned by the Jerry Reinsdorf.
Right, exactly.
What do you know?
But again, the fact is that the Bulls forcing CHSN to pull a podcast is just goes to show that Jerry Reinsdorf and whoever was responsible for this, they have very thin skin. They don't want any criticism, and they want to, as you mentioned, want to control the narrative, and it's not fair to do that. I do give, as much as I hate the Patriots, the New England Patriots have their own podcast, and they allow, and they also have their own magazine, but they allow the writers to criticize the team when they do something bad, and I give them credit for that. They if there's someone wants to be critical of the Patriots, they allow that to be spoken, especially on their own podcast. So I give them credit for that. But if you want to control your narrative, put your own podcast out there, release it through your own website, and then you can pretty much whitewash anything that you want to do. But just if you're going to allow you do have a media partner, but they should be allowed to have to do whatever they want to put on. Don't try to control the narrative that way. If you want, put a podcast that you want to put on, and with your own words, write on your own website, and then your own team control website, and then you can control the narrative that way. Chicago Sports Network should have the right to put whatever they want, and we'll see how long this goes and how long this partnership will last.
On that note, thank you very much for 116 people who stayed to watch our live stream show tonight. It's good to be back with you after last week's hiatus. I'm actually planning to go watch the F1, the movie, after the Gold Cup tonight. I know people are very excited about this one. I saw on the reports online that the $160 million opening weekend is expected for this one. Very excited. I know it's probably like a cheesy Hollywood flick, not for maybe like a genuine F1 enthusiast who've followed the sports for a long time.
I will say,
yeah, but again, it's the summertime. These are
right.
the types of movie that I think get the fans really excited. And now that it's the summertime when the school is out and everything, so I'm very excited to go watch it. And then hopefully I'll go watch it on IMAX. If not, even not on IMAX, I'll still probably try to watch it on Dolby Stereo, whatever that they have available. And then hopefully I'll enjoy the game. I'm sorry, I'll enjoy the movie itself. So
give a review for us here next week, Stephen. But also, I will say that while this is more for the United States audience, because Apple Films is involved in this and F1 was involved extensively in that, I will say that friends of mine in the UK are not happy with this movie. They feel this is a vanity project for Brad Pitt. They don't think it's real. But again, that's two different sides of the Atlantic that'll probably do well internationally because they're cameos by Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton and all those drivers. Yeah, I know a lot of United States people will not be too familiar with the drivers, although if they saw the Netflix documentary on F1, they'll probably know them. But those people who don't, just not knowing what about F1 and they see this, they'll probably won't. Those cameos will probably fall to the wayside. But I'm looking forward to seeing this as well. I hope to see this sometime next weekend, Stephen.
Absolutely. I'll definitely give you a report next week before, we wrap up, or at least maybe one last show together before you head out to Japan in the, after the 4th of July. So thanks for watching us tonight. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Of course, this upcoming Friday, it's the 4th of July. I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. If you're planning to go out or if you're planning to travel, at this time of the year, it's no fun with the weather, the flight delays and whatnot. So whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, have a wonderful and safe 4th of July. And we look forward to getting back together and do this again on our next broadcast. Ken, have a great week. Enjoy your 4th of July. And then we'll talk again very, very soon, everybody.
Absolutely. And don't forget, if you have dogs who don't like fireworks, make sure you have something for them because we know it's tough for the animals and pets for the fireworks. So just make sure you take care of them as well. We'll see you again next week on July 6th, next Sunday, and have a great week and enjoy your 4th.